Hello, this is Linda Vettrus-Nichols, your education efficiency expert, and I have two amazing women to introduce to you. Irina V. Stuchinsky, a mom of twins whose health tanked when she was only 15 years old, is with us, and Melissa Dianova Kastner. And you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves because you both have like incredible stories. And then I'll tell mine. Go ahead, Melissa.
Okay, so my name is Melissa. I am an FDN practitioner, but the reason why I got involved in more looking for the root causes of issues was because when I was a teenager, I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease at a very young age. And I didn't realize it at first. I don't really think that the doctors really knew what was going on either.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're getting all these different symptoms. And then it got to the point where when it got really worse, they started realizing that we need to identify what's going on. So, that's how I started, was going with my issues in my health. And now I focus on food sensitivities and autoimmune issues that obviously start in the gut.
Yeah, and you're making some incredible products too that are even gluten-free. Can you tell us real quick about?
Sure. Yeah, the products are called the Necessary Blend Meal Prep Helpers. They are, I feel, an amazing product because they help to support the gut. They don't have gluten or dairy in them. And basically, they're 3/4 of the way cooked in this mason jar. So all you have to do is add it to your cooked protein or veggie, and it's done. So it's a pretty easy, convenient, and a healthy way to meal prep, as well as supporting your health issues.
Beautiful, and such a needed product out there. I love it. And Irina, Irina, how about you?
Hi, so I am a licensed psychotherapist, and I've been in the healthcare field for over 10 years. I am also a certified integrative nutrition health coach. I work with moms, and I, inspire moms and empower them to really teach their kids, educate their kids about nutrition, the power of nutrition and healthy lifestyle, and how it affects their health. I've struggled with my own health issues for many years, and one of those issues was I couldn't get pregnant for 5 years. I also was depressed. I was overweight. I had endometriosis, which can cause infertility. And so I've discovered on my own, and then also through education through the IN Institute for Integrative Nutrition, I've discovered the power of nutrition, and I was really amazed to see the results. And I was the most skeptical person. So.
Yep. Everything has to be research-based or forget it. I love it. And my story is when my firstborn, my son, was 3 months old. I got a breast infection, and he had a fever, a raging fever, and he was so hot I couldn't even hold him, couldn't touch his skin. He had to just like lay on a pillow for me to even hold him. And at 4 months, he got puffiness under his eyes, which is a sign of yeast overgrowth in the system. And then his cheeks got really red, which is a sign of food sensitivities. And like dark circles under the eyes is more of a physical symptom, more of an allergy. And my daughter had that. So about 23 months later, his sister came along, or 25. And then, so he, by 2.5, his behavior was absolutely out of control. And I took him to a child guidance center to have him tested for like a behavioral disorder at 2.5, right? And I was told that I could put him on Ritalin and I could join a parent support group. But I'm like, wait a minute, I have a background in special ed, and I could just see myself sitting around in a circle helping all the parents. It's like, what am I going to get out of this group? And as far as putting my son on Ritalin, my mommy gut just said, you don't put a sick child on Ritalin, although I didn't know what it meant at the time. And then my neighbor told me about food sensitivities, and I found a chiropractor who started with the mothers first. And so he looked at my sensitivities and started to get my health back. And I actually had like the fibromyalgia and different things too, and the yeast and in my gut and the leaky gut. So that was like a great way for me to even get healthy, because my health had certainly tanked after two crazy kids. So I started helping other parents clean up their kids. And then I met a woman who did live cell microscopy, and a doctor who did live cell microscopy. So I'll go into that in a few minutes in my presentation. So the title of our talk today is Health Begins in the Gut, and all three of us believe very strongly in that. And there's research out there to prove it, right, Irina?
Yeah.
And that actually begins in the colon. So let's get started. All right, so I believe in a whole child systems approach. And if you think about it, the way our doctors, the medical community now meets together, they don't, right? It's all separate systems. And so I believe in looking at the whole child, and as humans, we're just like a little mechanical system, as Irina puts it. We're made up of individual systems, and that's where the medical community went wrong. And they forgot that the human system is one whole system with connected systems, especially when it comes to the body-brain connection, which is what I specialize in as a holistic education efficiency expert. So the healthy gut turns into a happy person, and certainly for teachers, a happier student. And the parents are a whole lot happier. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right?
So true.
Yeah, right? So, and then I wanted to get into that live cell microscopy. I have a couple of interesting stories. One of my clients, his grandmother had eaten some mayonnaise for lunch, and then I watched her have her live cell microscopy done, and it was amazing how, because she had had this nasty mayonnaise, like her cells had flattened, and then they had all stuck together almost like a worm. She had like all these cells stuck together like little worms floating around in her blood. It was shocking. And then there was I was actually doing a research project in school, and I brought this gal in who did the live cell microscopy, and she actually had the principal. We looked at his blood, and it seemed okay. We didn't see anything. Then we had him do a foot bath with negative ions, which pulls all kinds of crud out of even your organs and stuff and cleans up your blood. And all this junk dumps into the water. Then we did his live cell microscopy again. And there were all kinds of microbials floating around in his blood. His blood was really nasty, but he was just that toxic, if you will, that we couldn't even see it at first. Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Crazy town. And so when the gut lining, and you guys can explain this a whole lot better than me, when we get all these toxins, they can actually break through the gut lining, and this stuff can actually get into our blood, which is what had happened with him. And they call that leaky gut. And I definitely had that going, and so did my kids. So the villi is like in the intestines, and it waves around. It reminds me of like seaweed, and it's grabbing nutrients and absorbing them and then getting them into our blood, and then our blood delivers them to other places in our body. And if you take a scope and you go down into the intestines of a child with autism, not every child with autism, a lot of them, you will see that their villi is either bright red and swollen, or is literally burst and looks like raw meat. And so some kids with autism absolutely crave white bread and rice and anything white, right? And so people who treat, like, I think it's the Crohn's, like a dietitian, which kind of was like, oh, that's terrible. We'll just recommend an all-white diet. But actually, to get some of that stuff under control, that's actually helpful. If you think about it, it puts like a white paste. That's why you don't want to be eating that stuff. Puts like a white paste and makes almost like a cast on the villi just to give them some time to heal up. So I just find that so fascinating. And then there is this incredible book out there called Gut and Psychology Syndrome: Natural Treatment for Autism, Dyspraxia, ADD, Dyslexia, ADHD, Depression, and Schizophrenia. And so the author is actually a physician trained in Russia with a private practice in the UK. And you guys have probably kept up with her more than I have over the years. Her name is Natasha Campbell McBride, and she's an MD. And so if you look at the beginning letters of gut and psychology syndrome, it would be the acronym GAPS. And she uses that term because it's really a gap in the knowledge in the medical community. And I really agree with her. It's time to examine the whole patient. And she also says that she's never met an adult or a child under those labels, those so-called mental conditions, who did not have digestive problems. This is what she said: every disease begins in the gut, and we have to look at the digestive system when we treat any degenerative disease, no matter how unrelated it may seem to the condition. And it's like, yay, so true, so true, so true. And so our immunity is so vulnerable, and our barrier is actually there in the gut. And so when toxins are, coming into our system, it's the barrier, a good healthy barrier that we have in our gut that's going to keep us healthy. Even like resveratrol will kill germs in the gut, and it's not the germ that gets us. It's not about the germ, it's about the host. Where are you at inside? Are you a host for germs that is going to allow them to grow? Or are you a host that has a good protective barrier in your gut that won't let them grow? And what happens, or what we need there, is a good amount of good bacteria. And that's why I love what Melissa's product is all about, right, Melissa? Because it's helping to build the gut up for that healthy barrier.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And so the benefits of probiotics, things that keep your gut healthy, keep good bacteria growing faster than bad bacteria. Probiotics reduce gas and indigestion. They balance out diarrhea and constipation. They relieve what's that word? They help you relieve yourself of bad breath. How's that? They reduce skin issues. They lower cholesterol. They help fight candida, which is yeast overgrowth. They help with chronic fatigue, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia. If you're ever in pain, just get into some probiotics and even some enzymes. There's just nothing like it. They help regulate the hormones. They aid in vitamin formation. They help to acidify the colon and keep salmonella and E. coli from growing. They improve our lactose intolerance. They reduce risk factors for colon cancer, and they alleviate allergy symptoms even in infants. Whew, that was a lot, right? All right, so we're going to go on and hear from Irina, because she's the science gal.
Thank you. It's all great information, Linda. I agree with everything you said, and probiotics and digestive enzymes have helped me a lot through, my health journey, or through my journey to health. As you said, I'm a huge proponent of science, and what we know from science today is that we have the two brains, not just one, but two brains. And I know you mentioned that. So our, brain, major brain or primary brain, and our gut, which is also called our second brain, and they are amazingly interconnected. You can probably hear how amazed I am and how, I'm just, it's amazing what our bodies, can do. And so they are connected through the vagus nerve, right, in our body. And so when our gut is inflamed, it sends signals to our brain. And a great example of that is when we are anxious, we tend to have butterflies in our stomach.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that, right? I've had that many times. So that's a great example of that interconnectedness and that relationship between the gut and the brain. So the optimal gut health is essential to prevent chronic degenerative conditions like dementia or diabetes that are triggered by systemic inflammation, which begins in the gut. Mm-hmm. But however, we do have hope. There is hope. Our genes, and I'm sure you both know this, our genes are not our destiny. And it's not my saying. I don't want to take credit for it. It's been said. I don't remember who said this, but I truly believe in this. We can turn on and turn off our genes depending on what we eat and how we live, basically on our lifestyle, right? And by our lifestyle, I mean physical activity, adequate sleep, stress management, exposure to environmental toxins can also impact our health significantly. So what we eat each day is the most important factor in how we feel, how we age, and whether or not we will develop chronic degenerative disease. And a lot of this negative, there may be a negative impact on our next generations as well. And of course, as moms, that's our biggest concern is our kids, right? So it's not just it's not that it might affect our kids. It also might affect their kids, their kids' kids, And when we hear genetic, this word that a lot of people use, that it's genetic. It's genetic because most of the time, or many times, what we eat, from generation to generation, whether it's cultural food or, just what we eat in our family, that's what makes it genetics, genetic. But genes can be altered, or the expression of our genes can be altered. So the power of nutrition has shifted my priorities and the way I view wellness, happiness, and healthy aging. And last but not least, what I want to say is that health is not just about what's on our plate. It's also about everything else that brings meaning to our life, what inspires us. What makes us happy, and that's what adds years to our life. Mm-hmm. The concept of primary food, which I learned from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, but so food that we eat is secondary food, and everything else is primary food. But nutrition plays a huge role. I don't want to, really say that nutrition is not important, because it's crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has to start with young age. The younger, the better.
For you, Irina, have you heard of the Pottinger cat study by any chance?
No.
Oh my gosh, they like fed the cats. Have you, Melissa?
No, I haven't.
That's like from my day. That story hasn't come through in this era. But they fed them a group of cats raw food and a group of cats cooked food. And then the cats that ate the cooked food went on to have babies whose like hair fell out, and well, I think even their hair fell out, and their babies were really crabby and nasty. And then I think by the third generation they couldn't even breed again, so it was really incredible difference. And it was called the Pottinger cat, I believe is how it was worded. It was very cool. Should I move the slides for you, Irina?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of covered, I think, all of this also on this slide. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add then?
No, not really. No.
We're good. All right. Melissa!
All right. So it does stem back from, as you were saying, Irina, even taking care of what you're eating when you're younger. So when I developed Crohn's disease as a teenager, I'm eating like a teenager, right? I'm eating all kinds of foods and pastas. And the one thing that I didn't realize was that there's different factors to developing food sensitivities and issues in our body. As I went back to school to learn about this, because of, with myself, there's autoimmune in my family. My kids are developing, they were starting to develop certain symptoms were coming out. And I wanted to dig deeper and learn about food sensitivities and what is actually causing it. And the root causes, right? Just because we have a rash on our body, we don't want to put a cream on it. We want to look deeper and try to find out the root causes of rashes, right? So it's so interesting as I started to learn about this and what the factors are, how stressors, and there's 3 types of stressors that can cause breakdown in our body. Mental and emotional, there could be physical stressors and chemical stressors. And sometimes the physical and the mental and emotional stressors are easy to understand and be able to see because they're in front of us. But sometimes like chemical stressors, which could be bacteria and parasites and also foods, we may not realize or understand or see right away because it's so quiet. Until symptoms start arising. So when I started having symptoms in my body, for instance, I was having joint pain. I was starting to have, fatigue here and there. But then it got to the point of increasing. And that's when the doctors were saying, okay, we need to take care of this. But symptoms in our body is our way of our body saying that something's wrong. We shouldn't have symptoms, right? Our body's like being a red flag saying that something's wrong. And so food sensitivities is what I started to dive into and look at. And as you were saying, Linda, about the villi and about your gut and how these stressors can start to break down that intestinal barrier. The one thing that I love when I learned about leaky gut is that our bodies are made perfect. Each organ and each cell is called to do a specific purpose and work the way it's supposed to work. And when we have these triggers that try to break down our body, the intestinal wall that is our cells and our tight junction should be really tight. When we have a breakdown, it's like poking at this barrier and this protective case around the villi, and it starts to have if you want to say holes, and where these cells that are so close and tight together automatically start to separate. And now those things like that were our bacteria or parasites or anything that was foreign that our body keeps out so that way it doesn't hurt us in any way and get into our bloodstream, start to come in, like you said, Linda, and go into. And that's what was happening. I was starting to develop new food sensitivities, and I didn't realize it. I automatically, all of a sudden started reacting to broccoli or bananas, And I was okay with that. And I realized that after a while, when our bodies are in such a breakdown mode and we have that leaky gut, that our bodies start to react to new food sensitivities. I also realized with autoimmunity in my family, like you said, Irina, that we can change and alter our genes in our family. Just because I have autoimmune in the family doesn't mean that I have to live and walk in it. That our environment and our diet and our lifestyle can actually pull the trigger or kind of put a halt to it. So I've learned to be able to walk in that lifestyle. I've learned to be able to watch and see what's around me, to not put any environmental toxins as much as we can. One of my favorite sayings about autoimmunity is that immunity is like a gun, but our environment and our food around us pulls the trigger. So we can have control of what our outcome is in life. There are so many just studies of how the percentage of autoimmunity is increasing. And our immune systems, again, going back to how our bodies are made perfect, our immune systems are made to attack something foreign and then stop, and then attack something foreign and stop. But sometimes our bodies, it's like our bodies go into this havoc where it starts attacking its own tissues and its own cells, like having a really bad party go out of control. And that's where I love, like Irina said, and you had mentioned, using lifestyle, learning about environmental toxins, making sure we're doing as much as we can by having our toxins eliminated out of our liver, knowing what we're putting into our body. My other favorite saying is, just because we eat healthy doesn't mean we are healthy. And the reason why I say that is because I deal with a lot of people that are wanting to know why they can't lose weight, why they have a bloated stomach, why they still have brain fog if they are eating healthy. I had somebody recently say to me, but all I eat is chicken and broccoli. I'm like, well, maybe the chicken and broccoli is the very thing that's causing your bloating. Maybe we need to look at that. Sometimes I think that we're so used to feeling like we have to follow a certain diet. And because this diet works for this person, it's going to work for me. And just because we need to go this route, it's going to work for me. But we need to look at ourselves, because we're our own, each of us have our own DNA. We're made different than everybody else. So we need to really figure out what's working for us instead of looking to see what's working against us. And by removing those stressors, because what happens is when we have a lot of stress in our life that we don't take care of, it's like this cascade of all these things that happen. Our cortisol levels rise, our sleeping patterns are not well. We can't sleep. Sometimes in the middle of the night, we could wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning because our liver's on overload, working on overload. So by removing these things and trying to help our bodies, we can try to eliminate as many stressors as we can, which is going to try to eliminate the breakdown in our gut, which is causing the intestinal permeability, which is leaky gut. And then once that happens, that is like an open door to other things. I'm very visual, as you can see. And what I love, this picture that I have in my head, is the way leaky gut is. It's like standing in front of your door and opening the door and just letting these like intruders come in, right? Nobody wants to have some intruder come in your house and rob whatever's in your house. And it's like somebody goes upstairs to the bedroom and somebody goes and hides in the basement. And then a lot of times we focus on one thing in our bodies. We may not look at our nutrition or our diet, but we may think like, I could have use this cosmetic. It's going to be okay because it's like the coolest lipstick out there. So of course, why wouldn't it be good for my body, right? And the way I look at it is, if we deal with the one intruder that's upstairs, but that other intruder or that robber is still downstairs in the basement hiding, even though we are taking care of our bacteria and our good bacteria and feeding it like, probiotics, we still have things that are there that still need to be gone. So that's why it's so important to try to look at the root causes and try to see what is there that may be causing or adding to a lot of your health issues. Yeah. So that's been important and a huge eye-opener for myself and for many people that I talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been such a great conversation. And so why don't we go through where people can find us? I'm on Facebook at Successful Patterns for Learning, or the @WineFreeKids. Get there either way. And my website is Vettrus-Nichols.com. How about you, Melissa? Where can we find you?
Sure. My email is melissa@thenecessaryblends.com. It's consistent. My website is www.thenecessaryblends.com. That is where I have my food products, but it does have a link on there that will link you to Knowing Your Food Triggers, which is my other coaching side of my business. So if you wanted to learn and look deeper, you could do that as well.
Perfect. Can't wait to get your product. And how about you, Irina? Where can we find you? You have a Facebook group.
I have a Facebook group, private Facebook group for moms, which is called Healthy Kids, Happy Moms, with a comma in between. Healthy kids, comma, happy moms.
Okay.
And my website is www.healthykidscoaching.com. My email address is Stuchinsky, STUCHINSKY, wellness@gmail.com.
Wonderful. And I'm Linda at evolutionaryhealer.com. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun. And Melissa and Irina, you didn't know each other, and Melissa and I just met out in a Facebook group. So just brought everybody together because we are all three so passionate about this topic, and we really want to get the word out that it's really important to take a look at the gut, especially starting your infants out with a healthy gut, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, colic is a real alarm system going off and something to take very serious.
Yes, and also for moms, it's so important for new moms, after pregnancy to
have their own healthy gut, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. All right. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.